Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. I love you all. My name is miahtheking, and did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? It had decent food, but no atmosphere. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Eternal Strands, and if you're new to the channel, then I welcome you and encourage you to stay. Why? Perhaps it's because I'm one of the few reviewers out there who can help you figure out if you need a game in 10 minutes or less. Or maybe it's for the funny one-liners at the beginning of every episode. Take your pick. Anyway, Eternal Strands was developed and published by Yellow Brick Games, released not in early access, and selling for $40. So what even is this game anyway? Well, without spoilers, basically, there's this city full of people called Weavers, and you can think of them as wizards or other spell flingers or whatever. Anyway, one day a massive war broke out because the capital city of Weavers shut themselves out from the rest of the world, thus causing a chain reaction of horrible accidents and a corruptive influence that spreads like COVID. So, the world now hates all Weavers. Anyway, you're a Weaver. You play as Bryn, a young, courageous Weaver who, along with other Weavers, are determined to re-enter the old capital city and figure out just what the hell happened all those years ago. Alright? Alright. Now then, as always, let's go into the good and the bad, followed by my final thoughts, shall we? So, up first for the positives is the artistic design. Right from the title screen, I was impressed, but when I got into the first cutscene and saw the artistic style of the art they'd chosen to go with, I was already smiling. I actually really like this artistic design, and while it might not be the best or the smoothest, it has its own charm. Now, I didn't say graphical quality, and the reason is because in general I think the graphics are just average. They're not great, but they're not terrible. The contrast and color choices are good, but the textures and attention to detail is not. So it's got its good and it's got its bad, but for the most part it was inoffensive, which is why it's here in the positives. Next up for the positives is the sound design. Now, much like the graphical quality, it's about average, unfortunately. It wasn't offensive though, so that's why it's here in the positives. Like, it wasn't cringy or out of place or needlessly goofy. It was just meh. The music is kind of mundane and subpar, as is the rest of the sound effects. The music doesn't even change when I'm in combat. It keeps its fancy-free, light, bubbly music despite me literally fighting for my life, and it's kind of off-putting. The sound effects themselves aren't bad, but they feel like they're missing weight, you know, like the gritty grinding of stone on stone or blade on blade. It's just not really here. The voice actors are pretty good for the most part, though there are some scenes that kind of feel like someone didn't understand what inflection they were supposed to be going for or what kind of emotion they were supposed to be attaching to it. See, like that. Like, I'm sorry, but from everything they've led me to believe up to this point, she should have been screaming in pain, not just grunting a bit. So it definitely felt out of place, and this trend does tend to continue. However, there was more good about the voice acting than bad. Most everyone else seems to be doing a fairly good job, and I personally didn't find any moments that were cringy or ridiculous or out of place or anything. Plus, all the text dialogue, like all the dialogue in the game, it's fully voice acted, so that's commitment, that's dedication, and it requires our kudos. You know, they did good. Good job there. It shows commitment, and I like that. The next positive point I'd like to talk about is the tutorial and the stability. The tutorial is great, it's perfect, and exactly how I like to see tutorials done. Thank you, game devs. It's not in your face, it's not throwing a bunch of needless text at you, it's in coordination with the story and introduction of the game and the world. It's a smooth, seamless transition from tutorial to gameplay without feeling like a bother. So the tutorial was great. As for the stability, I personally didn't experience anything outstanding. No frame rate drops, no clipping, no freezing, no crashing, no anything. It ran super smooth and without issue, which allowed me to really get into the game, so that's good. It ain't broken. Next up for the positives is the gameplay. Now, the gameplay is probably best described as an easy version of Elden Ring or Dark Souls. So, if you ever wanted to play those games but thought to yourself, man, those are just too hard, then come play this instead. The combat is very similar. It has the unforgiving nature of when you die, you end up porting back to camp and can only hold on to a few of the resources you've collected on your journey. The rest are lost. But it's not like XP in like those other games, which to me is a much bigger slap in the face when you die. I'd much rather lose resources than experience points. But speaking of resources and experience points, in this game you locate resources on your journey which are used for upgrading your gear and crafting new gear, but can also be used when transferred into camp supplies to make upgrades to the various workstations at your camp, your base. The higher level the workstation, the more buffs and bonuses and unique stuff you get from them. As for XP, there isn't any in the game, which I kind of feel was a missed opportunity. Just like Elden Ring and Dark Souls, there are boss fights as well. There's blocking, dodging, and even countering. There's a spell wheel for different spells you use, a ranged bow and arrow combat mechanic, and even two-handed weapon combat mechanics. There's dialogue options and a large open map to explore. Now, the game is still fairly linear, at least in the beginning, but the maps you get to explore are still rather large with lots of different things inside them for you to explore and look around at. The way magic works here is also really interesting and unique, as you can just simply cast spells at enemies, or you can affect the environment around you. You can literally click and hold and drag your spell around and create whatever you want. I, for instance, love the ability of encasing my enemies in ice, which not only damaged them, and kept them stuck and still, but so, it allowed you to attack them while they're trying to free themselves. But you could also pick up objects and toss them at your enemies, and those are just the first 2 spells that I found and that I was using. The enemies are varied, interesting, and unique and challenging, despite the gameplay being easier than Elden Ring. It's not boring, I'll say that much. At first it was just mainly wolves and these like robot archers, but then I discovered some kind of invisible enemy, some kind of chameleon thing, and I was just like, whoa, what the hell is that? So, the enemies, they're diverse, I'll give them that much. Now, I do have a few issues about the gameplay. I don't like the fact that I have to play as Brynn. Whenever I play RPGs, I prefer to play as a male because I like to immerse myself and relate to my character. Forcing me to play as a female is not really my ideal game. I wish they had given us 2 models, Brynn and Brynn, because I think that's a unisex name, and then given us 2 models who basically look the same but are male and female. Now, I know this isn't an RPG, it's an action-adventure, and they're trying to tell a story, and I get that, but still, personally, I feel like that would have been a better choice for them. I think they still could have made it work. But she's not a bad character. She's very well written, she's got a great voice actress, and it's very fun to play as her, so, at least there's that. I don't like the lack of XP either. I mentioned earlier that I think that's a waste, and I don't like the lack of fast travel. I mean, the game does kind of have a type of fast travel here and there, but it's a bit awkward. Maybe I just haven't gotten deep enough into the game yet to actually unlock the real fast travel, but right now it's kind of like you just find this cave and it kind of teleports you back home. I don't know, it feels a bit annoying to me, but it's also kind of minor and not really that big of a deal, just more of a pet peeve to me personally than anything else. But honestly, overall, I couldn't really find a lot of things negatively to say about the gameplay, especially since you can increase or decrease the difficulty to give you the experience that you want. I was kind of digging the game the entire time I was playing, without really seeing anything that I didn't like or thought was pointless. I mean, you can even change what your character looks like, because as you collect different resources, you can upgrade pieces of armor or weapons or whatever, and it'll change the appearance of the armor and the weapons depending on what resources you used, so that's kind of cool. And last but not least for the positives is the price tag and the user interface. Honestly, the user interface is a bit wonky, but it's not bad. The magic wheel and the weapon wheel make sense, they look good and function well, the combat and controls all have good mechanics and work well, the inventory, quest, map, and all that also looks really well, so honestly, pretty damn good UI, despite it looking a little simple in some menus. And the price tag I feel is incredibly appropriate. When you think of the production quality of the game constantly giving us well-animated, well-voiced cutscenes, or the fact that every line is voice acted, or the large map, the diverse creatures, the unique ways to approach combat, along with everything else, and I just think that $40 is a damn good price tag here. It's definitely a good $40 price tag. Like, it's definitely worth it, alright? Okay, so that's all I got to say positively about the game. Now we got to move on to the negatives. But before that, have you hit that subscribe button yet? Because you should. You'll get to join my Royal Guard if you do. Also, maybe hit that bell. It's kind of important. See, that bell lets you know when I review a new game. And I review all kinds of games at very random times. And you never know when I'm going to review a game that you've been missing out on. So hit that bell and stay informed, alright? Alright, now then, on to the negatives. The graphical quality could be a bit better, I suppose. I wish I could play as a dude, I guess. Yeah, I got nothing. I mean, I'm legit racking my brain right now trying to come up with something negative about the game that wasn't already mentioned. I don't know, maybe the dialogue is a little bit mundane and tame, like maybe, but I don't know. Okay, so look, I don't really have any negatives. Okay, let me just sum it up here. The game has average graphics, average sound design with average gameplay. It has great writing, good characters, a decent idea, and its design overall is also decent. But it doesn't really offer us anything new or innovative in terms of its gameplay or its story or its characters or pretty much anything really. If this game had released 20 years ago, it might be considered freaking amazing game of the year, but it wasn't. By today's standards, this game is, above average. They missed out on quite a few opportunities in my opinion. However, they don't advertise this game as an RPG, so that's a good sign. A lot of them will do that even though it's not. They advertise it as an action-adventure, which is exactly what it is. So, that's a good thing. That's not to its detriment. It looks like an RPG and acts like an RPG, but it's not an RPG, which means that a lot of my complaints are null and void as they only apply to RPGs. It's not a bad game. Like I said, I consider this above average in every single way. It's also not broken and completely finished. So it just makes the $40 price tag seem all the more perfect. Do I recommend the game? That's why you're here, right? Well, if you're looking for straight up action adventure, then yes, absolutely. If you're looking for an in-depth RPG, then no, why are you even here? It's not that. This is a game with a story to tell, with characters living that story, and you're just along for the ride, enjoying the fun gameplay. In a lot of ways, this game is just really something special. I legit couldn't find anything bad to say about it, so take that as a good sign. In other words, if you were even remotely interested in this game, then yes, I highly encourage you to support these devs who worked their ass off to give us a good game, and experience it for yourself. You won't be disappointed. It's not a ripoff. Alright everybody, so that's all the time I got for this video. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.